Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravrajikacharya Astotara Sat to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Stikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Girida Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri New Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. So, thank you for this opportunity to try to give some hearing and chanting about Krishna and Krishna's philosophy in Srimad Bhagavatam class. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, text 30. Chapter 31, text 30. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe dehe abudho sakṛt aham mamety asad-grāhaḥ karoti kumatir matim. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe dehe abudho sakṛt aham mamety asad-grāhaḥ karoti kumatir matim. Shall we do the word for word? Okay. Bhūtaiḥ. Oh wait, someone please chant first. I'm sorry, I forgot the. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe dehe abudho sakṛt aham mamety asad-grāhaḥ karoti kumatir matim. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe. Dehe abudho sakṛt. Aham mamety asad-grāhaḥ. Karoti kumatir matim. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe. Dehe abudho sakṛt. Mamety asad-grāhaḥ. Karoti kumatir matim. Vaishnavis. Bhūtaiḥ pañcabhir ārabdhe. Dehe abudho sakṛt. Aham mamety asad-grāhaḥ. Karoti kumatir matim. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Bhūtaiḥ, by material elements. Pañcabhir, 5. Ārabdhe, made. Dehe, in the body. Dehī, the living entity. Abudhaḥ, ignorant. Asakṛt, constantly. Aham, I. Mama, mine. Iti, thus. Asat, non-permanent things. Grāhaḥ, accepting. Karoti, he does. Kumatir, being foolish. Matim, thought. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. So, please repeat. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. Purport. The expansion of ignorance is explained in this verse. The first ignorance is to identify one's material body, which is made of 5 elements, as the self. And the second is to accept something as one's own due to a bodily connection. In this way, ignorance expands. The living entity is eternal, but because of his accepting non-permanent things, misidentifying his interest, he is put into ignorance, and therefore he suffers material pangs. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, like in this verse. And my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunivadi Paschachade Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Virabahu Prabhariti Namine Shri Shri Vrindata Viraya Padapankajadayine Prabhupada Anuvadaya Nama Shivira Bahave. So, thank you for giving me this opportunity to Srila Prabhupada's disciples. I don't see even one here, but I offer my respectful obeisances to all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who are the actual link for us to the disciplic succession. Without them, there is no link. So, without their mercy, we can't continue on in this process of devotional service very easily, not at all. and that by which they have given and bestowed that upon us because of their deep love for Srila Prabhupada. So, thank you for allowing me to sit here and give this class. It's really a golden opportunity because it increases my opportunity to hear and chant, which I wouldn't probably ordinarily do. I'd probably be more wrapped up in other things, and so it's good for me. This verse mentions two, the purport mentions two, and the verse mention two ways that we become thrown into the darkness of ignorance, and one is by accepting this material body with the 5 elements as being ourself. And the second is accept one's own, something as one's own, proprietorship, territorialism, thinking that something belongs to me, as the next bodily condition. So it made me think of a Bhagavad Gita purport in 1520, the last verse in the 15th chapter, where Prabhupada describes the 2 weaknesses of the human heart. And those are to own. We want to own something. And as soon as we get some opportunity to own something, and that's like becomes, as we read in the previous verses, like the little boy who wants a toy, or he wants so many things he has expectations of, and he becomes frustrated and angry and cries. So little girls too. And so we want to get that thing, and then once we do actually obtain that thing that we've had our heart's desire, then we want to control it. We want to say that this is mine and I have complete control over it and nobody else can do anything else with it except me. You know? And so those Prabhupada describes are the fall down into the material whirlpool, those conditions that we make. That's hard to understand because it's our nature to have something. We have to have some personal possessions, but it's like this. Anasaktasya vishayan yagarta upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya uchite. I have to make use of these verses that I learned in Bhakti Shastra, so forgive me if I don't say them well. But the idea is that someone who's not attached to anything, but at the same time he sees things in relationship to the Supreme Lord, that person is firmly fixed above possessiveness. So that the idea there is that we don't have any attachment to anything for ourselves, but when it comes to Krishna, we can try to see that in relationship to him, and then that makes us so that we're not like thinking about ourselves so much, about what we want or what we're going to get out of it. How does it benefit Krishna? How does it serve Krishna? So or becoming attached to it for Krishna, for the sake of Krishna, protecting it, protecting Krishna's property. Right now we have a moth problem in the pujari room, and there's some devotees who are very keen on destroying the moths because they actually ate Lord Jagannath in particular. They ate about 2/3 of Lord Jagannath's paraphernalia in his peacock fans. So they're eating prasadam, but it's not rice and dal. It's the deity's paraphernalia. So there's devotees who are very determined right now to kill the moth. So we might say, well, how is that, seeing that in relation to Krishna? Well, yeah, we want those fans for Krishna's service, and we don't want to have to dive into the temple treasury to purchase a whole bunch of new fans. So that becomes a service, and we start to see moth poison as part of Krishna's paraphernalia, at least temporarily. You know, so anything can be seen in the service of Krishna to some extent. You know, it depends on the situation, the time and circumstances. So I thought this chapter, I don't know about you, but all of you, but I felt like this chapter has been kind of dark for me because it's the living entity in the darkness of the womb, and he's struggling and suffering, and he's praying to get out. If some of them pray to get out, some of them don't even pray to go out, get out. Some of them are comatose practically and don't have very little desire to try to become Krishna conscious while they're in the womb, depending on the advancement of that particular soul in that embryo. But so I was thinking it would be good to see a verse that's in more positive light, because you know, coming from generations of women who gave birth to babies, and knowing that there's women in the room possibly who may give birth to babies in the future, that situation exists, and it's really, it may seem dark, and it may seem, not the nicest thing in material nature, but it also has its lighter side. It's and so we shouldn't see the darkness. Asochas anvasachas tvam pragyavadams chibashase gatasum akatasumscha nanu sochanti pandita. While speaking learned words, we're lamenting for something that's not worthy of grief. Because yeah, the soul is trapped in the womb, but there's something that's going on there that's very, very important. It's like Prabhupada said in his class yesterday, the bird makes an egg, and then he makes a perfect flying machine. And the men are trying to make perfect flying machines, and those flying machines are falling out of the sky. Prabhupada disciple has arrived, Kija. And, the flying machines are falling out of the sky because they're not perfect. But these birds, they have complete command of what they're doing in the wind and the rain. They're surviving. So Prabhupada said that the bird is a perfect flying machine, and similarly the man and the woman, they also generate so many machines in the form of living entities, souls in human bodies. And so those human bodies have to be generated through birth. So while this chapter seems dark, it also has a really bright side, because we shouldn't be lamenting for this birth and death. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna, we shouldn't be on the platform of thinking that this is all just the planet of birth and death and there's no solution to it. Najayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita va nabuya, nahanyate, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there isn't any birth and death. There's, if you think about it, there was a time when you and I didn't have any experience of being born and dying. That's in our history, and it's in our longest history. Just our experience here in this world is just a short blip compared to the eternality of the soul and the future of the soul also. The past, present, and future of the soul. Maybe presently we're in this condition of repeated birth and death, but the past there wasn't any. So the soul, and actually in this present condition we are not actually being born and dying. Even in this present condition, we are just experiencing that with our mind and our senses. We're just the body and the mind and the senses. The subtle body is experiencing birth and death, but it's not actually happening to the soul. The soul is nabjayate mriyate va kadachin. He's not born. He doesn't die. Ajo nayam bhutva bhavita nabu. Nor having one spin, does he ever cease to be. He doesn't have a beginning and ending point. Like on Sankirtan, we give people Bhagavad Gitas, and most kids you meet, they think that, well, when I die, that's it. It's finished. So they're prepared to do anything they want for sense gratification, or whatever it takes to be successful in this world, without any ethics or morals or spiritual consideration. They're prepared to do anything they want. So Bhagavad Gita is so essential, because it explains, no, you have an eternal responsibility to yourself and to others and to Krishna. So I say to them, you're not just a Waymo and there's no one in there, to try to get them the book. You're in there. And what if they take you 911, they take you to the hospital, you're dying of cancer, you have a heart attack, because those things are real. And I look pretty old to them, so they kind of take me more seriously now. So I say, what if you're on your way to the hospital and you get there, and that's it, I'm dying, I'm out of here, and you die, but what if you're still there? In other words, what if you think it was all over, you got rid of it, you finished it off, the body's gone, but you, the person, you didn't die. You're there. Your consciousness is still there. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to handle that? You know, what is your responsibility? Because how you lived your life, how is that going to meet out after that? You know, how is that going to balance out? So this chapter is called "The Movements of the Living Entities," and it makes me think of a lecture that I feel really fortunate. I don't think I would have ever listened to Prabhupada's lectures as much as I have, because on the altar we constantly play Prabhupada's lectures. So, and that's the rule. It's nobody else but Prabhupada. So that I've been really fortunate in that regard to hear Prabhupada that much. But the problem is that I don't really listen. So my guru said I should take notes. So sometimes while I'm on the altar, I take notes. It seems kind of unusual, but that's what he said I should do. So I got some good stuff from that. And one of it, he says, the movements of the living entities, Prabhupada says they're not moving. He said that the people of this planet are not going anywhere. They're frozen. They're stuck. They're not moving. And why? That seems so contradictory. Because you go out on Venice Boulevard and you see the cars are moving and moving in the freeways, and people are walking here and there, and they're flying thousands of miles. People are capable of flying all over this planet now, not like never before. Of course, in the past there were flower airplanes, but it wasn't like as passionate and insane as now with these huge airport hubs and people going and going and going. It's such a hard work that they do in order to transport their bodies from one place to another. And what are they doing? They're not going anywhere. Prabhupada said they're not moving because their goal is not moving towards the spiritual existence. They're staying within the material sphere. And so actually they haven't moved at all. So this chapter is called "The Movements of the Living Entities Through the Material Energy." It's not actual, they're not trying for the param, the supreme goal. And, so I thought I would try to tell a story from the 5th canto, the commentary by Madhva, and that story appears in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's a story of Sarvagya. I'm sure a lot of you know this. Sarvagya means one who can see past, present, and future. Sarvagya, he sees all. So Prabhupada said the criterion for being an astrologer is he should be able to tell you what your future is. He should be able to tell you the past and present too. And if an astrologer can't do that, then he's, if he doesn't accurately do that, then he's bogus. So Sarvagya, he was approached by a very poor man who he had a house, but he didn't have any opportunity to find his father. And so Sarvagya said, well, your father, it appears from your chart that your father is there in a distant land, but he died. And you don't have to remain poor because he left you a treasure. And so the poor man said, really? Well, I didn't, well, how do I find that? And he said, well, I can tell you. He said, but you have to listen carefully. I have careful instructions that you have to follow in order to find this treasure. Otherwise, you're going to fall into a lot of trouble. He said, it's at your house, it's buried in the ground, but it's not on the south side. He said, if you go to the south side of your house, there will be gnats that will sting you and bite you. And it's not in the north. Don't go there because there's a serpent who's going to swallow you. And it's dangerous. Don't go to the west side because there's a ghost. And he's a yaksha, and he's protecting the west side, and he's very invested in that. So don't try to get your treasure there. Your treasure lies in the east, because your treasure is that of the eternal Father. And this is the way it's written in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is such a beautiful book. It's so poetic. In the east, the perpetual hidden treasure is called devotional service in pure Krishna consciousness. When one attains it, he becomes perpetually rich. One who is poor in performing devotional service is always in need of material gain, while one who is rich in devotional service has no need to fulfill. So that's kind of it's kind of a riddle. One who is poor one who's slack or not doing such a great job of performing devotional service, he's always going to be needed in material gain. Because I would think, well, they're 1 foot in the devotional service and 1 foot out of the devotional service. So it's always like, what am I getting out of this? How am I going to, what about me? And then, but one who is rich in devotional service, who fully absorbs himself in the process, it was actually absorbed in the hearing and the chanting, and is engaged in the temple service or whatever service at home that you have, who's fully absorbed in that, he's rich, he's wealthy. He has no need to fulfill. It's such a miracle like that, because that money was always such an issue for me when I was a non-devotee. It was like, so I love that it's such a miracle that somebody like me could actually be satisfied by performing devotional service, even though I had so many material desires. It's a miracle. So anyway, I should explain, and I won't keep you a lot longer, but the wasps in the south that the astrologer was trying to explain, south of that poor man's house, those wasps represent religious formularies and fruitive activity, like trying to attain your happiness in this world by, like we say, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, karma kanda, trying to make some kind of arrangement in a religious way. You say, oh, it's religious, I could do this, it's even kind of spiritual. But it's fruitive. It's what you want. It's what you're trying to get out of it. And that's all right. It's all right to want your family and your society to be satisfied and happy, but that isn't really the actual treasure. See? So that's why this analogy of the treasure in the East is so essential, because it's a really good story to help us understand what's really essential. So there's a verse, Anya bilasita sunyam jnana karma anavritam anukulena krishna anushilanam bhakti uttamam. That devotional service is first class, that doesn't have mental speculation, fruitive activity, and sense gratification mixed into it. That devotional service is favorable to Krishna. Doesn't have those three impurities. So if he went to the north, he would be swallowed by a serpent. I have to explain why wasps are biting people with fruitive activities. Because with fruitive activities, we think we get something that we want. And for instance, you get a car and you do a coconut sacrifice with lemon slices and a priest, and you chant mantras, and that's nice. You want to protect your car, you want safety for your family in riding in the car and all that, but inevitably you'll get stung by the wasp, because the car doesn't really actually satisfy in the term of shashvato, in the terms of eternality. It's the car, in maybe just a few years, it could get rear-ended, it could, certainly it will deteriorate in its value. After a car is purchased, it loses something like $5,000 or $10,000, $20,000 even after the first year, a brand new car. And then if you look at it 10 years later, it's like, well, it just doesn't really look that good anymore. And then on the inside of the car, it's all worn out. So you did that big yagya, but it bites you in the end, because it doesn't, unless it's being used for Krishna's service. If it's just for your own personal sense gratification, it's definitely, the wasps are going to come and bite. So then in the north, there's the serpent. And who is that serpent? That's the serpent that swallows the mystic yogis. The mystic yogis are the many mystic yogis that go to the north. That's kind of like, you can think of it as the Himalaya mountains, that they go there to do meditation and vows of silence. And they're not interested in helping others or attaining Krishna's consciousness. They're more interested in merging into an energy like the Brahman. And why? Because they're so fried or frustrated with the fruitive activities they did to get sense gratification, that it's better, they're thinking maybe losing my identity would be more satisfying. So they go to that situation and try to do that mystic yoga. Mystic yogis who try to do mystic yoga for the purpose of attaining the heavenly planets, nowadays, they have no potency whatsoever, and that's in former ages they were powerful, and they could maybe attain to higher heavenly planets. But if they were not qualified, the demigods would just cut them down. I was just reading in Pastime of Churning the Milk Ocean that Lord Indra, as soon as, Prabhupada says in the purport, as soon as a living entity tries to attain to the higher planets by the process of mystic yoga, if he's just coming from the Earth planet and he doesn't really have the qualifications, then Indra cuts him down with a thunderbolt. He just takes him off, takes him down. So by the process of mystic yoga, people try to attain to Mauna Vrata. They're taking vows of silence. And Prahlad Maharaj says, my dear Lord Nrsingadev, I see there are many saintly persons indeed, but they're not interested in their own deliverance, in other person's deliverance. They're only interested in their own deliverance. And they take vows of silence, Mauna Vrata. As for myself, however, Prahlad Maharaj says, I'm not interested in my own deliverance. To leave all these fools and rascals behind doesn't please me at all. I'm interested in, for them, I see them suffering. They're not interested in the villages and the towns. For myself, I only want their Krishna consciousness. So going to the west, there's a yaksha there. And that's a ghost, and he's guarding the religious formularies that New Age persons come up with, mental speculation. In the West, I think of West as being like the West Coast of the United States, how there's so many New Age groups, and they have candles and crystals and, you know, seances. And sometimes when you're preaching to someone who's very invested in New Age religion, it's like the things they come up with, it's like repeatedly they come up with this and that and go off into nature and to have crystals and to take herbs and to, you know, it just goes on and on and on, and you're trying to like get through to them something about devotional service or Krishna consciousness, and it seems like their ideas are endless. And after a while you start to think that this is like a yaksha is haunting them, you know. It does seem like a ghost, they're being haunted by a ghost, you know. And or sometimes you meet people like that who are mental speculators who studied philosophy in university, and they argue with you on so many levels about this and that, and then and then there's Tibetan Buddhism, and then there's this, and then there's that, and then there's this, and there's that. And they know all sides of every aspect of the different contemporary and historical religious values. And then, but at the end you feel like this person seems like they're haunted by their mind, because they don't have any particular certain thing to rest their mind on. They're going from one thing, one topic to the other all day long, and seem exhausted. And they also feel like it seems like they're high on coffee, you know, you know, because they can just spout off all this stuff for hours. And so the actual purpose is to become cleansed and purified, and specifically understand that we're to focus our mind on the lotus feet of Krishna and the form of Krishna and the pastimes of Krishna. And that way the mind has a place to rest and not become so passionate, because this mental speculation is in the mode of passion. This happens in our deity department also. Someone goes to learn to do the deity worship, and they're being taught by someone who's been doing it. I'm not a trainer, by the way, but some other people are trainers in our department. And they're being taught by trainers who've been trained by Prabhupada disciples who have done this for decades and who have dedicated their lives to making sure that all the paraphernalia and clothing and incense and flowers and all that stuff is in place. And it's quite an endeavor. But they come in and they say, well, actually, I think I know how to do it better. And okay, that's all right. We don't say you can't just know how to do it better, but first, at least first, go through the proper channels, At least don't mental speculate about how the deity worship should be, or how it could be, or how it should be, or how it would be. That's what I always say to people. Well, it could be like this, it should be like this, it would be like that. But, what was it that Prabhupada's disciples and Prabhupada had set up for us a specific particular way? And then, there can be improvements, but that has to be seen, through authority. So then, the West, when I was a kid, there was a tree on our street, and it was bent over, and I go skateboarding, and under that tree, it was bent over, and it was creaking in the wind. And under that tree, I would always fall off my skateboard. And I even still have a scar from that, and several times, and it was frightening. But that was the West. It was like out, west of here in Venice. And I'm sure that Venice, because we know when we do Harinam there or go on Rath Yatra there, it's full of yakshas and ghosts. It's full of, and I'm sure that was some, and that was my fruitive activity, was to get that skateboard with my allowance and go up and down the street as fast as I could, and I got thrown off off my skateboard. So we learn that there's living entities in nature, and to go and try to enjoy like that, there's a, they have their responsibility. The yakshas have their responsibility to do what they do, their karma, to guard a particular city or a town. I looked them up by AI, because there isn't it's only one mention of yakshas in folio. And yakshas are either benevolent or malevolent, and they can be tricky, and they can cause harm or they can cause good. So we have to be careful with this mental speculation and desire to enjoy a New Age philosophy and like that, how that there's actually some element that's very malefic there that can do us a lot of harm. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. I thank you all for listening and being patient with me. I know I'm not the easiest person to listen to. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to give class. Does anyone have a question or a comment? Yes, Chirkor Gopinath Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji, so much for the insights and for the class. On this topic of the yakshas, I really like this, that the New Age mental speculators are yakshas.
They're haunted.
Or they're haunted by the yakshas. What's their destination? We know like yeyatamam prapadyante. Like are they making any kind of advancement? Are they becoming more sincere? Like, are they appreciating God and
really
some kind
question.
of like vague universal idea? Like what are they getting, if anything at all?
I think it's individual according to each person. Like say 50 people join some New Age religion and they're all together in it, but some of them may be more exploitative of the others, and then some of them may be more innocent and they just don't know. And so Krishna always favors the innocent, and somehow or other that the innocent person comes in contact with devotional service. So they're making some advancement, and some are not, So some may if they come in contact with the process of devotional service or get prasadam or something like that, then they can make some. And it's not that they don't chant. Some of them chant Hare Krishna, but they don't think Krishna is God. They think it's a mantra for making themselves feel good or look good or feel young or whatever. So it's not that there's no advancement there, but it's very, very pretty meager, you know. It depends, really, devotional service depends on coming in contact with a pure devotee of the Lord. It really requires that, yeah. So that's all. Does anyone have a better answer to that question, please?
Well, I just ask because, and I really hope she's not listening. I really doubt it. But my mom's kind of in that category, you know, into like tarot cards and cabal and, you know, that kind of stuff. I was always raised with, like, you know, this stuff around, and that's one of the reasons I was pretty like fried out with New Age stuff, is because it was zero systematic. It felt like there wasn't any real like logical or philosophical basis to it. And, you know, so she comes here, visits sometimes. She loves prasadam.
She's
she
sweet.
Comes and she's like, oh, the deities are so beautiful. And, you know, she likes Hare Krishna. I think she'll even chant a round of japa every now and then. And yeah, very like innocent, like sincere person. You know, and I don't like preach to her really heavy or anything. So I'm just wondering, like, I kind of just encourage her, like, oh, it's nice you have some spiritual thing.
Yeah.
But deep down, I'm also just like, that's not going to end the cycle of birth and death.
Oh, well, okay, I can only tell you the story of my mother. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but this is a really miraculous story. My mother and my stepfather, they came to the temple and they parked in front of the temple and they spied on the devotees because they didn't want me to be here. And they were very, very, you know, suspicious. And they were alcoholic and they worked for the Los Angeles Times. They were really checking it out, like thinking of hiring a detective and getting me out of here. And then as the years went by, and my stepfather died of cancer, and all the rest of my family died, and my mother was old. This is just my mother. She made a lot of spiritual advancement because my daughter would, when my daughter was born, she vowed not to drink alcohol anymore. And then because she knew that I wouldn't associate my daughter with her, with the alcohol, then my daughter would show her pictures of Rath Yatra on her cell phone, and we would bring her newspapers with pictures of Rath Yatra that the newspaper would print, and my mom being in the newspaper business. So you have to find that thing, that niche thing that they really like. So she liked the newspaper. So she saw Lord Jagannath in the newspaper and Rath Yatra. And then in the end, she told me, you had a better life than any of our relatives. She told me that. Your life is better than better than your sister's life, better than any of us. You have been more happy than any of us. She said, my mother said that to me, and I just felt like that really accomplished everything. And she wanted Lord Jagannath dolls in her room. You know, so don't think your mother isn't on the path. You just have to be patient, because the years will go by and things change gradually, especially with a nice devotee like you. Your mother will be very, you know, moved, very moved. Yeah. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.